Hey guys, this is Evan from PC Gamer. You're watching the first ever gameplay footage of Clockwork Empires from Gaslamp Games up in Vancouver, Canada. I went to visit those guys earlier this month in their studio and took a moment to record some gameplay footage of a settlement I was building. So as you can see here, I'm erecting a carpentry workshop, dropping in some workstations and a power saw right there. Some doors. So yeah, if you're not familiar with Clockwork Empires or Gaslamp Games, they made Dungeons of Dreadmore, if you played that popular roguelike on Steam a couple years ago. And Clockwork Empires is sort of a roguelike-y, it's very similar to Dwarf Fortress in its sensibilities, in that, you're building this colony, this community of people that use resources and harvest stuff to build other stuff. But you're constantly harassed by things that want to kill you and sort of knock your buildings over. So, yeah, right now I'm just sort of at the outset here. The cursor isn't visible in game here, but I was designating some areas to explore there to sort of eliminate that shadowy area outside the map. And I've got a few starting colonists who are chopping down some trees, and I'm telling them mine this rock for ore, and yeah, I think I'm getting to work here setting up some farm plots so I can grow food for them. Hey, that's important. One of the things I like about the game is I just, the charming artwork is terrific. It's sort of nicely stylized. Everything's kind of colorful and feels kind of sunny and friendly, which actually contrasts, a lot of what Gaslamp are talking about, where there's like a Lovecraftian undertone throughout the game that isn't really immediately apparent. And the idea is that, like, you'll be encountering lots of, I don't know if lots of is accurate, but like there will be Lovecraftian horrors that you have to interact with and deal with and fend off, and that may or may not, kidnap your citizens and bring them back in an altered state or something. But I like that there's sort of that contrasting tone where there are horror elements, but it's not explicitly, when you look at it, it doesn't feel like a horror game. So that should be interesting. So I'm building a refinery here, which has a couple required modules. I have to put a kiln in, I have to put a crucible in there in order for it to qualify as a refinery. And a door, of course. Everything needs a door. So yeah, refinery, I guess, can be used to, you're going to take raw, unprocessed ore and turn it into metals. I think that's fair to say. So each of my citizens here have traits, and traits are sort of like permanent or temporary statuses or descriptions that identify their personality and determine some of their behaviors. Here we've got our miner Leland chipping away. And I can, in the upper left-hand panel there for work crews, I can sort of, I'm designating tasks, and I can drag citizens between them. Like if I want 4 people farming, or if I want 3 people chopping down trees or something, I can shift that. But I don't have direct control. It's not like an RTS. I can't like micromanage and send this guy here and that guy there. That's kind of liberating. It sort of frees you up to watch the game and sort of observe what's happening and just sort of inspect and whatnot as I assign someone to forage berries. Alright, so another thing I have to build is, of course, a place for people to sleep. Unless I want them sleeping inside carpentry workshops or out in the cold or something, so I can lay down a lower class bunkhouse for my lower class workers. All I need there are some cots and a door. So yeah, right now, again, the game is really incomplete as the red text in the upper left-hand corner indicates. So you can see me slightly struggling with placement of objects here, but that's just because this aspect of the game is unfinished, like other parts, of course. In a minute here, I think I'll be dropping down one of the interesting units, which is called the Steam Knight. It's sort of like a big mechanized, steampunk, of course, military unit. So we'll look for that in a moment. You can sort of see his minigun highlighted on the ground here. So right there, I got a notification that more people were coming to the colony. It's sort of how you, at the moment in the interface, get notified that new citizens are coming in. And I can select my carpentry workshop and tell them to make planks. Yeah, so yeah, again, sorry the cursor isn't visible here, but my mouse is kind of moving around. You can see stuff highlighting. And of course the camera rotates. Alright, so you can see me throwing down a Steam Knight here. And this is, this is sort of like a debug, alpha or pre-alpha version of the game. That's kind of my own description, not the developers. And so normally, you'll have to take certain resources to build a Steam Knight, of course. You can't just sort of identify that you want to throw one down and have someone magically bring it into existence. Presumably it'll take a lot more technology to do so. But for the time being, that's how it's functioning in the game. You see somebody mining some gold there. Very casually. You're occasionally going to see some of those emote notifications pop up over characters' heads, sort of along the lines of The Sims, indicating either what they're talking about with another colonist or their emotional state. Get a peek at someone sleeping on the floor there, still waiting for the cots, I guess, to be built in the southern part of the map. Okay, so you can see our Steam Knight has been completed. And yeah, just at this point where we're looking for a soldier who's going to be entering back into it, I guess. And looks like this guy's got his eye on what's essentially like an Iron Man power suit of the steampunk era. Yeah, watch this animation, it's pretty cool. Nice. Yeah, again, I just love the sort of like rounded, charming look of these characters and most of the art in general. It just seems kind of inherently friendly, and it's going to be cool to see the way that the Lovecraftian aspects of the game kind of bump up against that. Alright, so he picks up his grenade launcher, his steampunk grenade launcher here. And because, there are no enemies in the environment for him to shoot at, he doesn't really have anything to deal with, but I'm going to change that by just dropping in some fish people enemies to terrorize my citizens. Yeah, Gaslamp told me that the splash damage isn't working right now, so that's why some of my citizens weren't maimed by those grenades, I guess. I have no idea if friendly fire will be in the game or not. But yeah, you kind of just get a loose sense of how fish people might terrorize or bother your colony a little bit. And the effectiveness of the Steam Knight. Okay, here we have our poet character Maud, who's wandering around looking for inspiration, I guess, from other objects in the environment. So yeah, there are different occupations in the game. There's a phrenologist, which is sort of a Victorian era pseudoscience that was used to measure and understand the brain, I guess. So those characters will like enter your colony of phrenologists and be used to sort of determine what traits citizens have to measure their brain and output that, so you have more information. Yeah, it's unclear to me what poets will do other than being useless. It's sort of an in-joke within Gaslamp Games, I guess. Okay, at this point I'm throwing down some, just to sort of test this aspect of the game, some defensive barriers, I guess. And at one point I'm going to throw down a turret here. And again, the menu system in the UI is not complete at all. We're just sort of a lot of stuff is in place here for the sake of testing it and being able to throw it down quickly. So All this stuff will have to be built later in the game once it's closer to completion. I'm going to try and build a brewery up here, I guess. One of the interesting things that Gaslamp was telling me was that, let's see if I can build it correctly. Yeah. Gaslamp was telling me that alcohol actually, I showed you guys the traits earlier, the sort of temporary or permanent descriptors assigned to each character. So if a character drinks, they'll actually forget their emotional state for a temporary period, I guess. So if they're sad or if they're upset, drinking is one way to deal with that, I guess, and actually, it'll sort of be forgotten by the code of the character and affect their behavior. But I'm guessing that alcohol and drinking will have other consequences. Yeah, so just kind of laying things down where I want. You can rotate objects and kind of decide where these decorative objects go, and then it's created as a job within your colony. You can sort of assign people to it, and yeah, pretty simple. If you played Prison Architect, some of this stuff should seem pretty familiar in terms of how jobs are created and sort of the whole indirect control scheme. Alright, and as a final act of generosity to my citizens, I'm going to create some more sleeping space for them, other than, like, I think the 6 beds I have at the southern area of the map right now. So that should help out. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Again, this is really early footage of Clockwork Empires, but hopefully it's giving you a better sense of the game. We have a big write-up on the site right now on PCGamer.com. It goes in a lot more detail on the systems of the game and how it's going to operate, and stuff like the mega projects, which are sort of civilization-style, wonders that of course have like their own kind of weird Lovecraftian influence in the game, and how they'll operate. So go check that out and read that if you want to get a better sense of how the game will operate.